So 1 minute and 25 seconds. Okay.
We're live.
Hello, hello, hello. Good morning. I'm just going to give a minute more for everybody to join. Asha, on my Facebook, it says 51 more seconds to go live.
Okay. No, I'm just posting the. I posted the link on TWM events. It's if you go to thrivewithmentoring.com on Facebook, you can see we're live.
Okay. On my, I am on Thrive with Mentoring live. It says in 32 seconds. I think it starts on the dot at 11. I'm going to.
Strange, I could see it.
Okay, mine says 18 seconds going live. And I know I've done this before. It always starts on the dot. So I'll start at 11 straight. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I am so privileged today to be hosting Tamar Schwartz and a very important topic that has been close to my heart through this Live from Thrive platform that we bring to you, and we'll bring various initiatives under that. This is under the umbrella of what we call Phenomenal Founder Conversations, or PFC. And Tamar is our very, very first guest on PFC. A very warm welcome to you, Tamar. Namaste, namaste. So Tamar has served for 10 years as an organizational consultant and as an HR officer in the Israel Defense Forces. She is a leadership development consultant. She was a leadership development consultant and the CEO of Mesila, Tel Aviv's special unit for refugees and migrant workers. Tamar was also a fellow in the Mandel Leadership Institute, where she developed unique intervention models for boarding school rehabilitation. And she has now been the CEO of Women's Spirit over several years. She has won multiple prestigious awards for human trafficking fighters, you know, the Presidential Award for Human Trafficking Fighters being one of the main ones. And for me, you know, to speak about the topic of domestic violence, she is indeed one of those highly experienced people, and you will hear from her, you know, what all is important in terms of this topic and what Women's Spirit is doing, because it's such a unique organization which is helping rehabilitate women who are impacted by domestic violence. And they have done this for many years with a program that is 2.5 years, you know, in the support mechanisms for women, which I think is quite unique, right? So welcome, Tamar, and tell us please a little bit about Women's Spirit. Tell us the why, the what, and the how of Women's Spirit.
Hello to you and to all the followers of this conversation. Thank you so much for inviting me and hosting me in this prestigious platform. The first thing I want to add about myself, that the most important thing, that I'm a social worker. I'm 32 years social worker, very proud social worker. And now I will speak about the Women's Spirit that I'm really privileged to be in the last 5 years. Women's Spirit was born from a sentence of the founder that complained about her father that was violent, and the police arrested the father, and the mother said to the daughter, what did you do now? Who will provide for myself? So this is the basic sentence of establishing Women's Spirit. Women's Spirit is dealing with the connection, the vicious connection between money and violence, or economic dependent and violent. And a very sad fact that is universal, it's in all the world, it's not only in Israel, that the most important factor that make the women victim of violence to stay in the violent circle is the economic one, is the economic dependent on the husband, And when I'm talking about economic dependency, I'm talking about this, that the woman is not allowed to go to work, or she's allowed, but she has to give all the money to the husband. The husband is controlling the bank account. He says to her what to buy. She has to report to him anything that she buy. He gives her money, and all of the control of the bank account is in the husband's hands. And many times he's making a lot of debts, and she has to pay. She doesn't know. He signed all the contracts. He's doing all the economic activity of the house. And most of the people in the world doesn't understand that this is violence. Economic violence, it's violence. Violence, it's not only when you get being hit physically by your partner. And the woman's spirit, what this organization is doing is mentoring the woman victim of violence, because, you know, in Israel, there are shelters. A woman can go out of the violent house. But what happened a minute after she finished with the shelter? The shelter is 2 months, 3 months. It's only an emergency solution. What does she do? She's staying only with her shirt on her, and she doesn't have where to go, what to do. She doesn't know how to manage a bank account. And not to be mistaken, I'm talking about women well-educated as not educated. The violence affects everyone in all the layers of society. And we are doing, our process is unique because it's long. It's 2.5 years, as you just said. It's intensive. Every week, the mentor is meeting the participant. We call the woman that come to us not client, not patient, participant. She's participating in her rehabilitation program. So it's long, it's intensive, and it's private. Of course, they're going to workshop, group workshop, that they learn how to write a CV if they don't work, how to go to interviews, how to manage their bank account. But most of the work is private, because these women are PTSD, post-traumatic disorder. Their self-esteem is very, very low. They have a lot of emotional problem because of being in a violent situation for so long. So they need this, we call it a big sister, big loving sister, that is with her really hand in hand for a long time. The second, the second part of our work is the community and comprehensive level, because it's not enough to work with the women on the private domain, because you can empower the women, but the state is stopping her, because, you know, the personal is the political. It didn't happen only to you and you. There are barriers, big barriers that stop the empowerment of women. So we write, for example, I will give an example. In Israel, economic violence is not considered to be a felony, only physical violence. And a few years ago, they changed the law, so also sexual attack in the family are considered to be a felony that you can go and complain in the police. Imagine to yourself that if you were, God forbid, been raped by a stranger, you could go to the police to complain. But if you've been raped in Israel by your husband, you couldn't complain. It's your husband. You must do it with him. So this is really unconceivable reality. So in Israel, they changed the law, but not towards economic violence. So if you and I, we open a business and I cheat you and I take all the money, you can complain and you can go to court and sue me, civil charge. The civil court. But if this happened with your husband, that he cheat on you and he take all the money and he is making debt and so forth, the woman cannot go and complain in the police. She cannot charge her husband. She must pay all the money. So this is also not
incredible. Yeah, I think, Tamar, you're talking about the nuances of that issue, right? That I think that if we have very new information, and I know that in the COVID world, there is a lot of media which is saying that the domestic violence rates have increased dramatically. The helplines are completely sort of overworked. But I like what you're saying in terms of the different levels of the systemic, of the system at which this problem is there, at the legal system level, at the political system level. And then within the house also there are economic dependencies. And you also spoke about emotional abuse, not just physical abuse. I mean, I read that it takes an abused woman an average of 7 attempts before she leaves an abuser for good. And I think that happens because most of the women, and I'm thinking also of women, that is what surprised me when you mentioned to me in our pre-talk, Tamar, that it's not just less educated women who are the victims of domestic violence. There are women, even in the higher echelons of society, who might be also well educated. I think you mentioned about a professor, for example, who can also be the victim of domestic violence. And I was curious to know, especially, I think you gave me an example also of another CEO, a high profile CEO, a completely different personality outside in the society, taking an exit from a high-tech organization that she started, making millions, and then at home being a victim of domestic violence, right? I'm just wondering, what is this aspect of social conditioning that keeps women so, even women who are educated and have the financial muscle to remain in an abusive relationship? Could you throw some light on that, Tamar?
Yes, so of course I agree with all what you say, and I think the sad conclusion is that the feminist struggle has not been ended. We still have, there is a lot of work being done. Of course, my grandmother couldn't vote. Okay, I can vote. So yeah, and in your country, only in 1972, women were allowed to vote, which is, of course, unperceivable. But still, even today, that we can work, thank you, we can go to university, we can vote, but the feminist struggle is still has a lot to go, because it's the structure of society that say to a woman, go to this profession, don't deal with money. To put women and money together, it's not so natural as men and money together. So even very, very talented women let the men take care of all the economic aspect of their families. And this is wrong. Of course, I'm not saying that all the men are violent and want to cheat their wives. Of course not. But the basic message of our organization is you should all be economic independent. And to say this message to men, of course, most men are economic independent. But the unique thing is to say this message for a woman. Yes, you get married, you love your husband. It doesn't contradict that you will be economic independent. You will have your own bank account. You will make the big economic decision together. Not only him will decide about this. And I want to add another amazing fact to what you just said, that it's so hard to get out of a violent home. It takes average 7 to 10 years. It's so hard to make any change, and also to divorce, to go out of the house that always said to you, you cannot, you are small, you are stupid, you can't be without me, you can't get along with nothing, you can't cope. So to go out of this home is very hard. And half of the women that are going out of the violent home are going back to the violent husband. This is a horrible fact. Imagine yourself that you are in a cage with a lion that wants to eat you, and someone is taking you out of this horrible cage and you, from your own free will, are going back to this cage. Of course, it's not logic, but when you ask those women, why did you do it? Why did you go back to your violent husband? They're saying, I didn't want to be on the street. I didn't have money to eat because he held all the money. She doesn't know how to cope with money. She doesn't have work. She is economically dependent on him. And think, logically, if you are independent, you will not go to bad situation back. You will make more rational decision. And this is the key to break the vicious circle of going out of the violence, going back. And the literature, the professional literature show us that women that are economically independent tend less to go into violent relationship. Not only they are going out quicker, also they less tend to go into the violent relationship. And of course, the other finding from the research and from the practice that we see, that it goes to every woman, every fifth woman is coping with violent situation, or from her partner, or from her childhood, that it's still influenced today. And it's the educated as the non-educated. Sometimes it's very rich women, you think they are rich because they are from rich home, but they don't have $1 in their pocket because the husband control all the money. So it really doesn't connect to education and to layer of society that you are in it. Unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, that was for me the most fascinating thing. I mean, as you know, especially with Thrive with Mentoring, we work with a lot of educated women. They are all in jobs, all are financially independent. And God forbid, I'm sure, as you said, if every fifth woman in some form is going to be impacted by this lack of economic, independence, and then the emotional abuse that probably they are aware. Maybe some of us are not even aware, to be honest, Tamar. We are not even aware, right? Because we discounted saying, come on, this is how it is. And maybe sometimes we are aware, but we are too embarrassed maybe to even admit it to ourselves. I mean, let alone admit it to somebody outside, And I know, and I read some of this research saying, for example, women of color, migrant women and all of that, they're impacted even more. Also because there is a familial conditioning. I read a very interesting story recently where the mother of the abused daughter was aware that she's being abused, but she was not supporting the daughter and telling her, find a way to make this work. So it's quite incredible, right? And we are talking about both educated women because of this conditioning and because of probably not knowing what to do and how to cope with all of this, because I think sometimes we tolerate things even though they are bad because they are predictable. And I think this unpredictability of what will happen later, the uncertainty, that's something that makes you feel stuck in those abusive relationships. I'd love to know what Women's Spirit does, right? You have this amazing program. Can you talk to us a little bit about, what the mentors are doing, what happens in a group, what happens one-on-one, and also, how you are now creating coalitions with other nonprofit organizations. I think in Israel, you're by far the biggest. You have won multiple awards. But I just want to know a little bit about, how you go about supporting these women in this 2.5 years.
Yes, I will talk about our programs, but first I want to refer to what you said about the embarrassment of a woman to admit that she is to acknowledge first, and then to admit that she is in a violent relationship. You know that now in Israel, there is a very famous social worker, Michal Sela. Her sister established an NGO, and now they made a hackathon of technological solution, how a woman will report that she is in a violent situation. And what her sister said, that a long time they didn't know, because her husband was also a social worker. You know, there were two social workers. You wouldn't think that they work with children at risk, you know. Who will think that in this house there is violence? And he wasn't physically violent. He was very obsessive and controlling every step she was doing. And finally, she went to a workshop of empowerment, and she said to him that she wants to divorce. She cannot live with this always jealousy and controlling, so he murdered her. He killed her. Yes, this happened a few months ago, and it was in all Israel very, very famous. And her sister is really doing, she's dedicating her life now to build a platform, how to help women victims of violence in Israel. But what this story shows, that this woman was a social worker. She was well educated. Her husband was well educated, and she was embarrassed to tell her family what is happening in her house. So really, this is the first step, you know, to acknowledge and to make it out. You're not blamed. It's not your fault. Go out. People will help you. Just go, stop this circle. Now, what we do is the main project, the main program of Women's Spirit is the mentoring program. We have a lot, all the mentors are volunteers, women volunteers. We have mentors and coaches. Also, the coaches are volunteers. And one of them, you know, Miriam Pe'er, which is your colleague. She's a coach, and she was also a volunteer coach, and now she's a worker in Women's Spirit, and she is the head of the department of coaches. Yeah. So we get all the women who want to volunteer. We have a good problem. We have more volunteers than we can have.
We like this problem, don't we? I think in Thrive we have the same problem.
Yes, no, you know, if I could help all the women victims of violence, but I'm not getting a volunteer, giving her the woman victim of violence and saying, okay, go, good luck. Of course, we supervise them, and we are building the program together, so we can hold only a fixed amount of volunteers that we can handle and supervise. And we have a few hundreds of volunteers all over Israel, from the north to the south. And also the one that want to volunteer, we arrange an evening that we explain that it's a big responsibility, and we want that the volunteer will promise to be in the organization at least 1 year, because it's a long process. And afterwards, we're doing a course of 10 meetings that we explain about the violence circle, the circle of change, about how you help a woman, occupational rehabilitation, how you fulfill her rights in the social security, in the ministry of that she will have her own house, and all her rights as a woman victim of violence. She has a few rights. We are still have to fight for those rights. For example, if a woman is getting unemployed, and she has also, she get a pension from the Social Security because her husband doesn't pay the child support payments, she has to choose or the unemployment payment or the child support payment. You understand? We fight the government for this. We are doing it with another, some other organization. We are applying together. We are fighting together. So there are some regulation in Israel that really holds and stop the process of the woman to get a good rehabilitation process. Unfortunately, we have still many struggles to go. So after the course, the mentor is accepting, this is like a marriage, you know, it's to find the suitable woman to the suitable mentor, that there will be chemistry between them. There will be a good connection between them. And they are meeting every week, and the mentor get a private and group supervision ongoing all the time. And also the woman that is coming to us, the participant, can get a scholarship to go to learn a profession in university, or to learn a profession in a course that we will pay for it. We are not paying things that are concrete support. We will not give money. We are always saying that we're not giving fish, we are giving the
how to fish, the rod.
Yeah, how to fish. We are giving the tools, because we don't want the participant to be instead of being
to create dependency on your
yes, to be depend, yes, to be depend on her husband, not to be depend on us. We want to give the tools, and she will be independent. And we have also a group of community work of activists that they meet every week, and they have workshops and lectures, and they are coming with me to the parliament when we go to speak, and they are speaking in the media. We are also going in the media and also doing lectures to the public to raise awareness to economic violence, because the public in Israel is not aware of this concept, economic violence. It's not in the book of rules. It's hardly been talked in the academy. It's really not, it's not in the talking, you know, it's not, nobody talk about economic violence. Nobody knows.
You know, it's fascinating. And I mean, you're giving the example of Israel. I am aware of two countries, Switzerland and India. Recently, actually, there was a short 7 minutes movie in India by an actress called Nandita Das, which went completely viral, which was showing, of course, she's on the phone, this lady with a victim of domestic violence who's trying to say, please give me help. But it had so much subtle messaging around, okay, there is not violence per se in the house of this privileged lady, but they were showing all the social conditionings and how she has become, especially in this lockdown state. I think there is a lot of research which is showing that women are more negatively impacted. They are going back to their gendered roles in most cases. They have this, what I think Sheryl Sandberg of Lean-In has called double duty. They were always on double duty, and now it's quadrupled. And of course, all of this without having any source of processing all of these emotions, right? And for some of them, it might be, I think a lot of women are just very exhausted and very tired trying to manage all of this. But of course, there might be other women, you know, who may not have children per se, but there's also high incidences of depression. And, you know, it's so many different challenges which are at a physical and emotional level. And you're spoken now about, you know, economic and systemic challenges. What I wanted to ask you is, what tip would you give to those women, you know, who are newly, because of coronavirus, they are new victims of domestic violence? Like you said previously, it takes, like, there is a history typically. Nobody who is abused for the first time immediately goes to the police or, you know, for help. It takes time before people come out. But there is a lot of research which is showing that domestic violence has skyrocketed. And I think it is very difficult for the woman who is herself suffering to quickly do something about it. But we probably know, and I know from our audience probably, we probably know a friend or a friend's friend or an acquaintance or a colleague, somebody who might be the victim of domestic violence, right? And I think that we feel at that time very lost. We don't know what to do with this. Is there any tips that you can give, both women who are these new victims, but also when we know such women, what can we do?
So really, you mentioned a few things that are very important. The corona virus made an unimpossible situation for women victim of violence, and also for children victim of violence, because we were the family the families sorry, were trapped together 24/7 all the time. So the stress situation was higher. You know, usually after holidays in Israel, there is a big decline,
Increase?
the decrease of complaints, because after staying together, even in positive situation, holiday, yes, staying together is stressful in this family. So after the holidays, always the complaints are decreasing. But the holiday of Corona, we didn't know when it will end. Even now, it's not ending. It's just going down, but it's not ending. So you don't know when it will end. You have to be all the time close in the house. You cannot go out. You cannot call, hello, do you hear me? My husband is beating me. The husband is near you. You cannot complain. And many times you have economic fears because you are out of work. You don't have money, and you have physical fears because it's a virus. Maybe I'm sick, maybe the children are sick. So all this is very, very stressful, and you're not going out, so you cannot complain. So in Israel, what they did, the Ministry of Welfare made a quiet number. It's a number that you do in your phone, like SMS, and so you don't have to call because your husband is near you, and then you can immediately delete it. So because those husbands, they are going through the phone, they are checking your phone all the time. And now in the hackathon that I told you about, that they tried to make, we were mentors in this hackathon, they tried to find the technological solution. They made a unique application that it looks like a news application, as if she was looking at the news. And then she could put a word that it goes to a special emergency center, call center, and they know where she is according to the phone. And if the husband is looking at the phone, he sees like it's a website of news. He cannot track her trying to call help. Now, what will I tell a woman if she is in a violent house? I think the first tip is to, and this is the hardest of all, to identify that you are in an abusive relationship. And I will send you, and you can share with your followers what are the signs for abusive relationship. Because if he hits you, okay, it's obvious, it's out, it's you know it. But there is emotional abuse, a terror relationship, that you are always in stress, you are always afraid of what he will say. Or I will give you another example, a woman that says, look, my husband is calling me 10 times an hour. He's in love with me. And I always tell this woman, no, he's not in love with you. He's obsessive. 10 times an hour. Well, he wants to know every minute what you are doing and where you are. This is obsession. This is controlling. This is not love. And a woman must identify that if he controls all the money, if he controls your life, if you are afraid, if he tells you every step what to do, if you are in fear of how he will react to what you say, then, my friend, you have to make a new assessment of your life, that you thought it's paradise. Maybe it's not so much. And then to call help, talk with a good friend, talk with someone from the family. In Western countries, there are centers and there are shelters that you can go out. It will be very difficult to make a change. It's the most difficult thing on earth. I always tell my workers, never ask a woman victim of violence that is coming to us, why did you stay so long? Because they are always staying so long. It's so difficult to go out. The only legitimate question is to say, how did you find the force inside of you to go out? Why
so
did you
how
make
did
the
you become
change?
so courageous, right? That's the question you want to ask.
Exactly. And you know why women usually tend to go out of a violent home? The most of them, if you ask them, the answer will be the children.
The children, yeah.
He start doing this to the children, or I saw that the children are being hurt. If it's only on her, women will suffer a lot. But when it start doing to the children, or she see that the children see it and it affects them, then she is not willing to pay the price. You know, we always think first about our children, then about on ourselves. So usually this is the answer. And I'm glad, okay, the reason will be what it will be. The important thing is to raise the low energy that you have and go out, because every situation have a solution and we can help you. Don't agree to be in a terror relationship. It's not good.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the inspiration that you have given. And also, we will share all the resources. We will also share, we've put together helplines from many different countries, articles, just to increase awareness, also show solidarity for this cause. Tamar, thank you very much. I know that you are doing fabulous work. And I know that you have impacted the lives and continue to impact the lives with your team of so many different women. Thank you very much. We are hoping to remain in touch with you, and we are hoping to see how we can also, through the platform of Thrive, create more awareness and offer more support to the women. Thank you so much. Have a very nice day. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.